coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming.
If every single country on Earth owes money, then who exactly is the creditor? And why has almost nobody ever stopped to ask that question out loud? Picture the world not as a collection of 195 separate nations, but as one single room where every government sits at the same table holding a stack of IOUs pointed at everyone else. And somehow the total debt owed is larger than the total wealth that exists to pay it back. A paradox so strange it sounds like a rigged card game rather than an economic system. And yet this is precisely the architecture the modern financial world has been built on since the collapse of the gold standard in 1971. The moment money stopped being a physical claim on something real and became instead a promise. A number typed into a ledger, backed by nothing but trust and the quiet agreement that tomorrow will look enough like today for the debt to still make sense. Trace the thread backward, and you find this is not a new invention, but an old ghost, the same pattern that buried ancient Sumerian farmers under grain debts to temple priests, the same pattern that toppled the Roman economy through currency debasement, the same pattern that triggered the Weimar hyperinflation, and later the 2008 collapse. A historical loop that keeps returning in different costumes, but never changes its core mechanism. Borrow to grow, grow to repay, and when growth slows, borrow again. Faster, larger, more desperate, until the question becomes not whether the debt will be repaid, but who quietly absorbs the loss when it isn't. And this is where the system reveals its best-kept secret, because the true creditor is rarely a country at all. It is central banks creating currency from nothing to buy government bonds. It is pension funds and insurance companies whose contracts obligate them to hold safe government debt regardless of how unsafe it actually becomes. It is future generations who never consented to the arrangement but will inherit its consequences through inflation, taxation, and shrinking purchasing power, meaning the real creditor of the modern world is often time itself, borrowed from a future that has no seat at the table and no voice in the negotiation. Look at today's headlines, and the pattern is already visible in plain sight. The United States carrying more than $34 trillion in national debt while still being treated as the world's safest borrower, simply because its currency is the one everyone else is forced to trust. Japan sitting on a debt load larger than twice its entire economy, yet functioning normally because its debt is mostly owed to its own citizens rather than foreign creditors. Emerging markets like Sri Lanka, Zambia, and Argentina collapsing under debts denominated in a currency they cannot print themselves. A geopolitical fault line that separates nations that write the rules of the game from nations that are merely forced to play it. And this is the part most people never see explained clearly. Debt is not just an economic tool, it is a strategic weapon, because the country that controls the world's reserve currency can effectively export its inflation and import real goods in exchange for paper promises, while nations without that privilege must earn foreign currency the hard way, through exports, resources, or borrowing on someone else's terms, which is precisely why global power today is measured not in gold reserves or armies alone, but in who owns whose debt, who can call in a loan, and who can simply print their way out of trouble while others cannot. So if this cycle has repeated for 4,000 years, the only meaningful question left is not whether it will happen again, but where exactly we currently stand inside it. And the honest answer is that we are almost certainly in the late, unstable phase, the point historically followed by currency crises, debt restructurings, or dramatic monetary resets. The phase where confidence, not mathematics, is the only thing still holding the system together, which means the real survival guide for ordinary people is not to panic, but to understand the machine well enough to stop being its unwitting collateral. Diversify beyond a single currency, hold assets that exist independently of any government's promise, pay attention to real interest rates rather than headline growth numbers, and recognize that "the economy is fine" is often the exact phrase spoken right before it isn't. Because in the end, the uncomfortable truth this entire cycle exposes is that the global financial system was never designed to be repaid in full. It was designed to be endlessly rolled forward, generation after generation, an enormous game of musical chairs where the music has been playing since 1971 and everyone quietly hopes they won't be the one left standing when it finally stops.